this a go. So I think it was my router was down. I think, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Hey everybody. Sorry about that. Maybe the internet was as down as I was. Yes, rocks, beware. Keep your oars inside the raft at all times. There may be rapids. So if the stream goes down again, apologies. Hey everybody, AJ back here again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. Hey Phelan. Hey Keith. Hey Blue Toad. Yep, we're doing it this time. Everything seems to be good. Occasionally you need to like restart the router. It's just one of those things. I didn't check before. I just got up and switched everything on and attempted to live stream. Apparently that was bad. It was really weird though, because when I restarted the router, I could access like Facebook, but I couldn't access any other sites. I could get into Hotmail, but I couldn't get into Gmail. It's like everything Google was down for some reason. Right. Okay, Dungeon Tales. Hi, Dragon Lord. Sorry about that, everybody. My apologies. Dungeon Tales. Axe poison. Hey, Trey. Yeah, just stop the chill video halfway through again. I'm sorry. Nice to see you. Nice. Hi, Stephen. Welcome back. Sorry to everybody I lost. I think it was only like there was only about 15 people in that previous one. Hi. So yeah, hopefully everything's working. It's Shark Week. Also, the videos that I've been producing this week, actually, in preparation for release next week, are mostly Fae stuff. So next week will be Feywild week, but this week it's Shark Week. And for those of you who are my patrons, because I've been producing videos in advance, the ones that I'm producing specifically for Shark Week will just go straight to the audience. But you still get access to the scripts and everything as well. So hopefully, yeah, everything's working fine. Been very productive monkey this last 3 days or so. I've been making videos every day. So we have videos on the Baba Yaga coming up, and we've got a video on the Quickling. And yeah, the first of the Shark Week videos is the Chul. And if you've ever encountered chuls in your game, then you'll know why you refer to them as sharks, because they're more like a gator, really. Like they're the way that they attack people and drag them under the water and tear them to pieces is kind of alligator-like. But they're so often underestimated, apart from in my game where they've been encountered a few times over the last 10 years, and every single time somebody has died. So yeah. Also, I had a comment about the Chul video. Why didn't I use any of the information from Lords of Madness? I didn't check it, honestly. I didn't actually look in the book. I do have it, but yeah. So if there's anything in there which, yeah, Baba Yaga. So if there's anything that contradicts what I was talking about, my apologies. But so the way that the lore works, the rules of Dungeons and Dragons lore are stuff which is in novels is trumped by stuff which is in source books, and you always go by the most recent source book, pretty much. And the subclause to that is you occasionally ignore everything from 4th edition. So yeah. So in the video on the Quicklings, I talk about how there's a very different design for the Quicklings in 4th edition, and a lot of people own those miniatures and stuff. And I talk about how you can use those as well as the more traditional appearance of a Quickling. That both are just fine because they come from different areas. So I sort of weave that into there as well, so as not to leave anybody out. Yeah, it's interesting, the whole Aboleth thing, because that's a 5th edition invention, really. So they're now officially creations of the Aboleth, but from 3rd edition, when they were created, they weren't. So yeah, now they're Aboleth creations. A lot of people, I think, have played them that way anyway. They've always been involved with Underdark species and things, and you usually find them in caverns and caves and mine shafts and things. But originally they were intended for all sorts of different environments, mostly swamps. So you would usually find them in a swamp nearby lizard folk settlements. Yeah, White Wolf took some liberties there with the folklore. Baba Yaga is not a vampire. She is a Fey Lord, pretty much. And Baba Yaga is not one individual, it's 3 sisters. So that's something interesting that you will learn about in that video. I didn't really know much about Baba Yaga before I started researching that video, so it was very interesting, all the different lore. And it definitely, when you start talking about the... Oh, yeah, really? You've been on a deep Planescape dive for the last 2 months. Would you ever consider continuing your Explorers series on the Outer Planes? Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going to carry on doing stuff on Planescape as well. I am working very slowly on a video on the factions of Planescape, which are quite important. And I think Chris Perkins, I heard him mention Mercy Killers in one of his recent videos, where he was gaming with the Acquisitions Incorporated team. So I'm not completely caught up on that game, but the Mercy Killers are one of the Planescape factions. Hey, Zonoff. Zonoff, you'll be happy to know that I'm not dumping that. I'm not changing... And this is for everybody as well who enjoyed the the latest intro to that. So it was an aquatic themed intro for aquatic species, because I'm going to be making more aquatic videos for people who have requested that for their aquatic campaigns. So things that feature species that can live in the sea, or encounters that happen at sea, are going to have that intro as a theme. And the overall feedback I've got from people is that the rock jarring sort of sound of that other intro is not to everybody's liking, but they like the graphics of it. So I'll probably change the sound on that intro, but leave the graphics the same, and maybe shorten it a little bit. How do you make more Lovecraftian a madness? Yeah, essentially, like for instance, if the large Chul have got a psychic lure that draws people in, that's a very Lovecraftian thing. So people are drawn into it, particularly if they're not aware. If you don't tell the players that they're being psychically drawn in, you just point out that, like, you weave into the story that it makes logical sense to go a certain direction, and whichever direction those players go, it always leads back to the encounter with the big Chul and the little Chul who have got the psychic lure going on. So it seems like seems like they just got drawn to against their will, but all their decisions were being messed with by the Chul. Yeah, the demon intro, exactly. That's a good example of the thematic intros. So you know when that intro happens, it's going to be a demon video. Everything seems to be up and running now. The Chul ain't they cool, because the fools that need to go back to school. They started being minions of Aboleth in Pathfinder. Since Paizo can't use Mind Flayers, they use Aboleth as the ancient race that did experiments on creatures, Chul, Cloakers, Dark Mentalists, etc. Well, that also fits. I mean, they did that in D&D as well. So, yeah. It's interesting. Well, they can't use Beholders and they can't use Mind Flayers because they're IP of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, but what he's saying is the aboleth aspect of it started with Pathfinder. But yeah, the third edition is 10 years older than Pathfinder for sure. Cloakers are interesting actually because there's also the Ixixarchitl, which are quite a major race of the shallow sea, warmer shallow sea areas of Faerun, and they're all worshippers of demonic powers, including Orcus. So Orcus's main power base of cultists is not on the land; it's in the ocean. So that's one of the aspects of underwater campaigns that you have to deal with, is that there's these very, very nasty manta ray type creatures which worship the dark powers of Orcus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, Morgan. I'm also going to on that particular note. In the Tome of Beasts, there's some Lovecraftian creatures which I'll be bringing to you in short videos where I talk about that sort of stuff as well. Just the idea that you can include alien creatures that come from space in your campaign, and that's how you introduce some of the Lovecraftian stuff. So cultists too, like, are worshipping ancient obelisk and things like that, and they're not so much summoning something as they're just there when something arrives from space, and that thing that arrives doesn't care about the cultists at all, and they're not paying any attention to the cultists as far as they're concerned. It's like you've just landed a helicopter and there were monkeys in their clearing doing something strange. You pay no attention because you've got your own agenda. You're there for the diamond mine or whatever that's been there since before the monkeys even came into the area. So that's the sort of Lovecraftian stuff, that there's ancient things going on, ancient beings who have a claim to the world before your race even existed show back up, and the cultists are crazy enough to think that they're in charge, but they haven't been from the outset. That's the sort of Lovecraftian stuff. That sort of theme of cosmic horror, of cosmic nihilism as well. The other interesting thing about H.P. Lovecraft is that he didn't write those as a cohesive pantheon of monsters. He wrote individual stories, and together they got sort of collected by the fans afterwards, and they came up with a lineage and relationships between those monsters that H.P. Lovecraft never intended there to be. So the whole idea of Cthulhu being the child of other beings, for instance, was never H.P. Lovecraft's idea. But a lot of work got done on got performed on his pantheon afterwards. So anybody else got any questions? You're playing a game? What are you playing? Trying to talk to an angel. Nice. Just remember, angels have got their own agendas. Oh, nice. Ruins of Aslant, Part 1. There is a huge ecology article on Aboleth. It details their creations and hierarchy. That would be interesting. Nothing, Zonoff. I was just talking about H.P. Lovecraft stuff and that sort of cosmic horror aspect of the game, and that I'm going to be including some of those creatures in videos, short videos. They created Atlantis and advanced them magically and technology. Then when the slaves revolted, Aboleth destroyed it. Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting that 5th edition has gone the way of basically embracing the Pathfinder lore. I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of a shot over their bow. It does sound like fun. So at the moment in my my campaign, the adventurers are basically servants of Cormier, and they've gotten called away from killing a bunch of kobolds in a kobold lair in a crater, in an ancient floating rock fortress of a black dragon that had crash landed many years ago and has been infested with kobolds. And the purple dragon knights went in there essentially, or the silver spears went in there to make sure that the kobolds didn't have access to all of the money that was in there, and they got their asses handed to them. So the player characters go racing in with these knights saying, "Don't go in there, the kobolds will kill you," and the player's like, whatever. And sure enough, one of their players gets their character killed, mainly through doing something kind of silly, but it was a very hard encounter and sort of set up things that were to come. And most recently, they've just been in a big netherese lair under a mountain. Hey, thanks, Jacob. On the topic of sharks, please tell me a massive piss-off Megalodon is statted for 5th edition. Please, I'll give you $5. Well, okay, so you've got the reef sharks, you've got the hunter shark. So you've got all the basic abilities that a shark has, and it's fairly easy to increase the stats of that shark. I mean, a Megalodon, after all, is just a very large great white shark. So let's do the math, shall we? Let's just grab the monster manual and have a look. See, I might actually have, possibly, maybe not. It's always impossible for me to go through all of the paperwork that I have. No, actually, maybe it's in here. Here it is. So here's my stats by challenge rating piece of paper that I used. So essentially, you increase the CR of the monster, and you have a look at the back of the book and check out dire shark, giant snake, giant scorpion, giant seahorse, giant shark. So Megalodon is a giant shark. So we already have it here. So it's a challenge rating 5. It's a huge beast. So Megalodons are what, 20 feet long? Listening while driving, keep your hands on the wheel. So yeah, the giant shark is basically a Megalodon. It's got blood frenzy. It's got advantage on melee attack rolls against any creature that doesn't have all of its hit points. So that's pretty good. That doesn't. Well, it implies that that character would be bleeding. So let's say that. It's got water breathing, obviously. It's got blind sight out to 60 feet. So it can attack in complete darkness, which will be useful in the very deep oceans. It's got 126 hit points. It's got an armor class of 13. Now, that's something that I would increase if you're facing a... sharks have actually got quite tough hide. I don't know, but it is very big. So it's going to have lots of hit points, and it's going to have a lower armor class because it's very, very large. Yeah, maybe keep that. It's got a strength of 23. It's tremendously strong. It's got a dexterity 11, constitution 21. It's got intelligence of 1. So it's rock smart. And it's got a wisdom of 10 and a charisma of 5. Of course, you can play with the mental stats of a Megalodon if you want. Great white sharks, for instance, are the only sharks with which have got a noticeably displayed social hierarchical structure. So the big sharks always come in and eat first, even if they weren't the one that made the kill, simply because the other sharks want to get out of the way of the big shark, which will come in and will attack them to get at the food. So that's something that great whites do. We have more experience with great whites in New Zealand because they come to our waters in their breeding season in winter. So they not around New Zealand waters, but sort of off around the islands and things where there's lots of seals. Yeah. So the giant shark is 30 feet long and normally found in deep oceans. Utterly fearless, it preys on anything that crosses its path, including whales and ships. Its bite attack is +9 to hit. It's got a reach of 5, so it's a huge shark, but it doesn't have a reach attack. So that's obviously you've got to be right in its face. And it attacks one target for 3d10 +6 piercing damage, or an average of 22 points of damage. So there you go. And it's got a perception of +3. I would also include, if there's blood in the water for a creature, they can sense blood in the water from up to a mile away. So they will zone in on your location. So I would maybe give them a bonus to their navigation skill if they're trying to find you. Like if you're trying to hide from them or hide your trail whilst in the water, but you're bleeding, it's very hard. So I hope that answers your question. Uh, 60 feet? Really? Well, okay. So in that case, that was, what did I say? Challenge rating? So essentially, I'd keep the armor class the same. I would increase the hit points. Let's see. So that's a challenge rating 5. On my little chart here, it says for challenge rating 5, the average armor class is 15. Proficiency bonus is 3. It's got, say, 145 hit points. Its attack bonus is plus... Wow. Okay, so their attack bonus is really high for a challenge rating 5 creature. So I'd keep that the same, actually. And damage per round is on the very high end of challenge rating. So if you're going to increase the challenge rating to, say, 8, their bite attack would do around 56 points of damage per round. And they would have an attack bonus of maybe 10 or 11. So the average damage per round will be 53 points for the party. And if they're only attacking one target, because they've only got one bite attack per round. So yeah, pretty fearsome. Google says 18 meters or 59 feet. Yeah, that's a big shark. Very big shark. You might also want to give them a slam attack as well. So if they're attacking with their tail, they may jackknife their body around and actually body slam other people. Because a tail attack from a shark would be quite impressive as well. With something that size, it would essentially be the same as the sweep of a dragon's tail. Love you too, Potato. You should do a video on Elminster. Yeah, actually, Elminster showed up in the campaign that I'm currently running. It's the first time Elminster has ever shown up in my campaigns, and the reaction from the players was like, "That's Elminster. That's really Elminster." I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on in this particular part of the world of Dungeons and Dragons and Faerun is very important. There's a big portal letting in hordes of orcs from another world. Elminster is definitely involved because Cormyr is not very far from the Dales. So yes, Elminster is there, but Elminster was on a very low profile." So he was just masquerading as an old hedge wizard until suddenly he just went wham with his staff. Like they'd just gotten one of their party members killed by a chul, and they turned around and asked Elminster for some help, and he went bam, and a ton of magic missiles came out of his staff and took out the last 10 hit points of this chul and blew it to pieces. And then they all retreated. But yeah, one of the characters had died, and another character had lost his axe into the middle of this lake. Am I going to do videos on human culture, history, and how the heck a bunch of humans survive in this damn universe? Well, yeah, obviously humans have got a very powerful pack tactics. So compared to other creatures, like for instance, everything that makes hobgoblins scary is the reason why humans are so scary. So hobgoblins and humans have got a very similar sort of power in the world. It's just that hobgoblins have got the problem of half of their species having problems with sunlight. So hobgoblins are a little bit better in that respect. And yeah, there's tons of different lore on humans and things like that. For each different region, there's different language groups and ethnicities and things like that that are quite unique to Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, they do, Daniel. Oh, it's not like I see. A megalodon isn't like them exactly. It's just very similar. Yeah. Well, they had the same sort of teeth. The teeth look almost exactly the same. Oh, hi, Alex. So Alex is one of the players in the group. He's the dwarf who had his axe go flying into the middle of the the lake. So if you got any questions about the game, that yeah, Alex could definitely tell you. Alex, what's your opinion on Elminster showing up to help you guys, or not be particularly helpful? Devil puppies and demon kittens, yeah, will be most likely like a transformed dragon or something. Funny you should mention that. There is a Megalodon Shark God demon thing, primordial, underneath the Ice Slayer in one of the layers of hell. So if you go to one of those hell videos where I'm talking about the ecology and the exploration of one of those layers of hell, there's some information about that as well. What question do you always want people to ask in these streams, and what is the answer to that question? I don't know. I don't know, really. I like specific questions like that where I get to help people with specific monsters and things. That was handy. Would I do a video on halflings, halfling outriders and their caravan cultures, their niche in all the worlds? Yeah, sure. I like the idea of there being savage. In one of the previous campaigns that we had cults of cannibal halflings, and halflings were actually the bad guys in this particular world, which was quite interesting. It was quite a turn up. You also had a question about the average technology of D&D, since I was curious about the fact that you will have some cultures and races developing new technologies while others don't. Yeah, well, a lot of it is they develop technology along different lines. So they have magic, which we don't have. So that changes absolutely everything. So for them, they don't need electricity, they've got magic. They don't need incandescent bulbs, they've got magic. They don't need the printing press, they've got magic, although they still do print things. What would a puppy of Cerberus look like? Well, I can tell you, for one, it would be definitely a more difficult birth for that for that dog than any other. I don't know, cute. As clumsy as any other puppy, I suppose. Would a megalodon have resistances and weaknesses? Probably deal to poison. They're probably more immune to cold than other sharks, I guess. Mr. Welch is welcome to Mystara videos. Oh, cool. That's excellent. I will definitely check that out. Yeah, because Mystara is the original setting for D&D Basic, and D&D Basic was one of the longest running cohesive rule sets. So it went for decades. It went alongside the other editions of Dungeons and Dragons. So D&D Basic was Mystara. You need that puppy. I don't know. Like, I saw a lot of people on Facebook the other day were oohing and ahhing over a time lapse of a cub of a polar bear that was being raised in captivity and fed and stuff. And they showed lots of video of this thing being cute and lovely, but by 82 days or whatever it was, or 182 days, this thing was already looking like it was going to eat the cameraman. Polar bears, man, they're not friendly. The Twisted Rune. If I could jump, yeah, that's a question I get quite often. Would the Shanguin praise Megalodon? You mean the Sahuagin? They might do. They are known for keeping sharks. Sure. Yeah. I get asked that question quite a lot. If I could jump into the Forgotten Realms world, where would I go, or what would I do? I would stay very safe, probably. Very safe. Probably go somewhere like Waterdeep, for instance. Check out what the Mythal is like. Because obviously I know a lot more about the Forgotten Realms than most of the people that live there, in theory. Goblin dance parties. Oh, Alex can tell you all about goblin dance parties. Dark Sun halflings are misunderstood. They're tree huggers. Yeah, not really. Actually, the Dark Elves of Eberron are quite interesting, because they don't have the same stigma of the Drow. Would love to see you design and create stories for 3 to 4 mini heroes. Hero minis. Then at the end of your adventure videos, have the heroes fight whatever you've discussed and just see what happens. That certainly has an appeal for some people. It doesn't have a huge appeal for me, unfortunately. Already sent you a link to the video, AJ, in a previous stream. I guess you forgot. Yeah, I guess I did. It's much better sending me links in on messages, on like if you put a link to something in the whatever subject is current in the community tab, that allows you to put links in there. So just post links in there if you want me to check out stuff, and I'll definitely see it. Obviously posting links on live chats is more limited. So yeah, the whole thing of if I can do another little dungeon tale, so this artifact showed up, which was essentially the spice in a D&D game. It was a homebrewed world, and there was a brewing religious conflict that was going on between two different states, and the city-state that the characters were involved with, and they were dealing with like magic trade, and there were kind of larcenous and thievery going on. And there was a goblin barmaid in a tavern that one of the characters inherited, sort of thing. And they found this bag of spice, this pink spice, which is where the origin of the pink ooze comes from, the delicious pink ooze. So they got this pink spice that they added into onion dip that made it incredibly addictive. And this obviously increased the clientele and the changed the nature of their tavern, because the goblin barmaid sort of took things over a little bit, and the tavern was quite close by to a wizard academy, and so all of the young wizards and witches were attending the tavern and terribly addicted to the onion dip, and they ended up having a magic rave party in the basement of this place, dangerously close to an artifact which was an extra dimensional portal, which was inside a magical trunk, a chest. So things got a bit crazy. There were also spores of mushrooms from an otherworldly source, which damn near destroyed the city. And yeah, a nearby swamp with lizard folk who there was all sorts of little forays around there. That was one of the more memorable and fun campaigns that I ran. But yeah, that onion dip is still an in-joke. I'm now live at McDonald's. Dun, 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 dun. You said your world is on a similar plane of tech to these. I would then reply, thanks to people like you, we have the only resource that matters, information. I bet Vector would love chat. Love a chat with me. Yeah, I don't want to meet any liches. Thanks. Can I make a video of Despater? Yep, he's another one of the Lords of the Nine Hells. I'll be covering all of them in upcoming videos. There certainly are very beautiful parts of the Abyss. The Abyss doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to be ugly. Like, for instance, there's some of the Demon Lords have got very beautiful realms, but they're only beautiful on the surface. It's like that episode of Star Trek, original Star Trek, where they landed on a planet and everything looked ideal and beautiful, but everything was deadly poisonous and acidic. So you touched anything and you would die. So realms of the Abyss can be like that. Like, there's a realm of the Abyss, a layer of the Abyss, where everything is literally an idyllic, perfect paradise that draws you in, kind of like the Plane of Elysium, but it's the decadence and the corruption of it. So you fall into ever more decadent pleasures to the point where, like, you're doing horrible things. because there's no repercussions for anything. You can do anything you want. So it brings out the worst in people. And the demon queen essentially just plucks people once they've reached a ripe point of corruption. She plucks them away and then turns them into demon spawn. Lizardman Druid of Malar I want to play. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, Malar is a really good god. Time to hunt. Yeah, exactly. Malar, god of the hunt. I should do a video on him as well. He's really cool. Ornamental good. Demons versus Tyranids. Interesting. I mean, the way that the Tyranids work in Warhammer 40k, in case you guys are unfamiliar, they're essentially a macro virus that is traveling through the void of space, and when it touches down on a planet, it consumes all of its organic life. So it sends down these big tendrils that land and create these spawning pools of bio gunk, and all of these specialized weaponized life forms are spawned from it, which are the Tyranids. But before they do, there's also gene stealers as well, which infiltrate human populations or humanoid populations and destabilize and corrupt everything before the Tyranid hive arrives. But once the hive arrives, it just destroys and eats everything, turns it back into biomass, which is then absorbed back up into the cloud in space. So they're really cool in that regard. And in that regard, they're kind of like the Abyss, because the Abyss consumes and first it destroys and corrupts, then it consumes and it grows by incorporating that whatever environment that it's destroyed into another layer of the Abyss through extra dimensional portals, which become permanent. So yeah. They eat entire worlds, yeah. Suffer not the alien to live. So in some regards, the Abyss is very much like a Tyranid hive that's an extra-dimensional scourge which is traveling through time and space. And it's disrupting reality by creating permanent portals to things, to different environments, and corrupting them that way. Yeah, so in that regard, the Abyss is even worse because it corrupts everything, organic and inorganic matter. Because it's a corrupted elemental force. I don't know, Jacob. I'm not that familiar with that particular aspect. I just know the basics. I would need to actually research a lot of stuff in 40k to give you specific answers to questions. But I do love it. I love reading about that sort of stuff. Like the corruption of the Primarchs and stuff like that. It's really cool. I love that whole idea. The whole idea of Warhammer 40k is great. I'd be quite happy to make a separate channel and talk about Warhammer 40k stuff, honestly. So yeah. So more Shark Week stuff. I've got a video on specialized land sharks that I want to talk about as well. That's one of my more sort of podcasty things, where I'm kind of reviewing the Tome of Horrors, which has been updated and released recently, and made available for me to check stuff out. You may be thinking of, what do you think about Ivan and Pykel Boulder Shoulder? One is a warrior dwarf, the other is a dwarf druid who hardly speaks. It is downright epic with his skill in druid magics. Yeah, I think the kind of comedy relief in the cleric quintet, and interesting really. I mean, they're kind of like intelligence is a dump stat with those two, but they do certainly play up how tough dwarves really are. The endurance of dwarves gets them through. So they were kind of interesting characters and funny characters. They're not my favorite characters in that story though. Maybe playing as a player with people new to D&D. I was thinking of playing a human folk hero bard cleric. I'm going for a support caster. Is this a good idea? A human folk hero bard cleric. Yep, for sure, absolutely. You might even want to go with like the Elven Pantheon. So you could be a human that pays homage to to the elven pantheon, and through the beauty of your music and caring and empathy for others, you uplift them with clerical magic, for instance. But yeah, just play it by ear. Certainly, I would recommend, if you're playing with people who are new to D&D and you've played D&D before, emphasize your character forming connections, social connections and emotional connections with their character, and ask them in the game about their character and about their background and stuff, because the new DM may be concentrating too much on like the encounter and the combat and stuff like that, and the mechanics, and you can help out by interacting in character with the other characters and getting them locked into the idea that they're playing a different person, and it's not just the situation they're reacting to, it's the other people who are playing the game. And yeah, getting to know each other's characters is half the point. So that's what I would do. Whoa, I've set off a can of worms with this Warhammer stuff, obviously. What's your favourite obscure monster? Mine's the LeShay. Yeah, well, the LeShay are very obscure. What is, Rain, what's your take on the LeShay in 5th edition? What's their origin story? What do you think? I'm quite interested. Sharks. Orcs, the best part of 40k. The Tau are really interesting in Warhammer 40k as well. I love the idea of the Tau. How they've got a cohesive society and the diversity is their strength, but the core of the control is actually subversive. I like that idea. If you want, AJ, look up Arc Warhammer for Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy. Yeah, I'm not that much of a fan of Warhammer Fantasy as opposed to Warhammer 40k. Like, fantasy's interesting, you know, the Age of Sigmar, or like Sigmar and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I'm not. What can I say about that? I don't like the whole witch hunter aspect of it. The style of their clothing and things is too medieval, almost. It's dark and gritty. I like the dark and gritty of Warhammer 40k. I can understand that sort of dark and grim, far future, Total War sort of thing. The dark and gritty of Warhammer is more like that whole that corruption and stuff is just, it's a little bit too close. I don't know. I do like the mutation and the Skaven and all that sort of stuff in Warhammer. Would the Blood God have any domains other than war and death? Well, blood, obviously. Perhaps rage, anger, something like that. Have rocks and stuff that are working for it. Where would I find modern stats for a Brainstealer dragon? It's going to be the Emperor Palpatine of my game, and I could use some up-to-date intel. I would probably have to look that up for you. That is a good question, though. Brainstealer dragons are definitely a thing. Actually, let's note that down. Dwagon. It's a good question, because I like the idea of Brainstealer dragons as well. The armies are varied, yeah. Personally, I'm not big on the predating the multiverse thing. Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of the LeShay being the template, like being a Fey race, so they're of a dreamlike world of fairy, but they're not the elves. So the elves they didn't create the elves. The elves just were created in the same form as the LeShay. That's my take on it. I could be wrong though. Would that gel okay with you? Skaven are pretty cool, yeah. Undead genie ghouls. Yep. Great horned rat. Yeah, Zakara, for instance, is a really interesting setting. Like the fact that there's Karatua and Zakara are right next to Faerun. They're on the same landmass. So everybody concentrates on Faerun, but they forget that it's just not even the total half of that landmass. It's just, you know, the most well explained and explored part. But Karatua is just as involved. It's even more populous. It's a lot more civilized in some respects. So yeah. Algolfu. Yeah, Tyranids are like space locusts. I have a 9th level party heading into a big encounter, a ranger, fighter, rogue, and an earth cleric, and a bear totem barbarian. Nice. In the fight, they face a green hag, 4 banderhobs, 1 frog hemoth, and 4 flame skulls. Yeah, the flame skulls are gonna cream them. I'd probably cut down on those flame skulls quite a bit. The frog hemoth is also pretty nasty. For like if they're fighting a frog hemoth in a water-like environment, it's going to get very difficult for them because their mobility is going to get cut down a lot. The banderhobs are probably going to swallow them alive, and yeah, the green hag with her, yeah, 9th level. That probably is a bit too much. You know, depending on their experience level. No problem, Alexander. The elves are Corallin's kids, separate to the LeShay. LeShay are to elves as elves are to humans. Yeah, exactly. So that's essentially what I'd be talking about in the video. Council of Worms. Yeah. So the dragons have got their own society. And the different, like the chromatics have got a broken society, obviously. It's more like a pecking order of personalities where if they need to mobilize. But the important thing to remember about Forgotten Realms, and this is so important, the Draco Rage mythal has ended. That means that the dragons are now free to once again establish their empire on Faerun. So they actually form a much greater threat. This includes good dragons. So the good dragons have been separating themselves from followers and forming societies and things like that, because as the King Killer Star would come through, they would go crazy and kill everybody that was in their service or in close proximity to them. They would lose their minds and kill everyone. They'd turn into base animals. That no longer happens. And so Bahamut and Tiamat are now taking a much more keen interest in the world of Faerun and the dragon pantheon, which the dragons basically have said, well, if you're not going to fix the Draco Rage, then what do we need a pantheon for? You're useless. Now they may turn their attention back to the worship of the dragon gods, and with that comes rulership over all of the lesser races. So it's there's definitely a theme of dragons could be quite problematic in D&D. A Sphinx mummy. Wow. Yeah, challenge rating. In that particular regard, I would look at the overlapping abilities of those creatures, Jake. It's not so much the challenge rating, it's the you're essentially going to have all sorts of threats coming at your player characters from all different directions, which could really screw them up, particularly those flame skulls. Go all out and make fake characters who speak Sylvan and have innate magical powers. Yeah, well, the LeShay have got potent magical powers, and they've also got shape-shifting and things like that as well. So, yeah. They're creatures that are of the Feywild, and so the land of fairy. So they live in a dreamlike state where their will is like the Feywild is more vital and morphic. So their will can literally change things. So they instinctually have spell-like effects that are very powerful. How can I make a PC that does flesh crafting and genetic engineering? That's kind of difficult. Essentially, that would be in D&D. It's very hard to have that sort of stuff without it being corrupting and mutating and stuff. So that's kind of far realmy type abilities. So that's more like alien pact warlocks and stuff like that, really. It would be nice if Wizards of the Coast did a season on Karatua, for sure. Just like a supplement that's released. Of course, you're free to adapt anything from Karatua to 5th edition and upload it on the DM's Guild, for sure. If there's enough community interest in it, then Wizards of the Coast sort of basically follows suit. And they're supporting their existing IP. They're not creating new IP so much. Flame skills are terrifying. How would a mage make a bio-titan? Well, essentially it's a huge flesh golem. There's something like that in the Epic Handbook, which is essentially a massive construct. They have these massive constructs, and there's a flesh one as well, which has got an aura of stink from the decay and stuff of its flesh. And this, yeah, essentially it's a massive golem. Is there a snipe in D&D? There certainly should be a snipe in D&D. Why not? You could have something like, it's got some particular aspect to it, like some really rare thing that it can do, like a gallstone, which can you can use to make a potion of greater restoration, for instance. Constructomancer, yeah. Could it be possible for a prismatic dragon to become a Brainstealer dragon, maybe as a worm? So you're talking about the Brainstealer being a template, a Mind Flayer template that you would apply to a dragon. Then yeah, I suppose so, if you wanted to do that. I mean, your game, your rules. That would be pretty horrendous. Also, there's the whole thing of prismatic dragons knowing each other. So if something was to inflict that on a prismatic dragon, the other prismatic dragons may actually ban forces and wipe all life from the continent that created that thing. So they might actually go out of their way to destroy it, and everyone who had any part in making it or stood by and let it happen. So yeah, don't forget that prismatic dragons are extremely powerful and don't care about the mortals so much. They find them interesting, but if an ant hive does something horrible to a human, we would destroy everything in that area. I mean, we just would. LeShays can be anything. They could be good guys, can be bad guys. They can be indifferent observers, the watchers in the distance. They're immortal, so they've been around for thousands of years. And they live in a dream world. So LeShay could waft through the world a century apart, you know. One day could be 1,000 years ago for a LeShay. Yes, a ranger, longbow, or heavy crossbow in the sharpshooter feat. Yep. Well, that's, yeah, a specialist longbow hunter is awesome, for sure. What would I use to replace dragons as a big smart monster? Well, there's all sorts of things. You could have beholders. You could have intelligent dragons. You could have all sorts of stuff. Would I ever allow one of my players to attempt to attain immortality, perhaps through a magic jar spell? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Flying X-Blade. Thoughts on the ridiculous explosion surrounding character death on Critical Role? Too long, didn't read, I don't watch either, but basically a character died on Critical Role and people started abusing the DM. Did they? Did they really? Wow. Says a lot about that community. It's just a game, people. I mean, if there's a certain toxic fandom, right? So if somebody's got to the point where they're making cosplay of that character, and it's only like what the game is on its first or second episode, and somebody's making costumes and stuff for that character, that's a little excessive, really. I mean, it's great to enjoy something that much, but it's theirs. It's not yours. It's theirs. You're enjoying it with them, but you don't control it, and you can't, you know. You can't bully somebody into your obsession, making your obsession continuous and forever. That's, you know, what did Terry Crews say? You can either love something or control it. You can't do both. So yeah, love it, but let it be what it is. That's my suggestion to people who love D&D. Let the people tell the story. Love it, but when it goes away that you don't like, let it go and just carry on. I certainly don't think that anybody should be bullying Matt Mercer for anything that he does. He's a storyteller. He's a creative artist. You can't hedge him in. Speaking of Dreamworld, I need to get to reading about the Nightmare Lands of Ravenloft. Yeah, so do I. Well, Mind Flayers should have psychic powers. The Mystic class is all over the place. I don't know what Mike Mills is doing or planning on that. Hopefully he gets his shit together and we get psychic powers in D&D ASAP. Apparently he's had all sorts of balance problems with it, I guess. I don't know what the playtesting sort of feedback that he got from the Mystic class was. I assume that he's working on it. Don't forget, Mike Mills has been writing for D&D since Dragon Magazine. Like that article on the Chul from Dragon Magazine was written by Mike Mills. He was the one who came up with the lore of the Chuls being created on an island by some godlike being and being a blend of two different creatures. That was Mike Mills' creative work. So yeah. There's a particular channel which was criticizing Mike Mills and saying, you know, what's your experience and stuff like that. And I think he was wrong to do that. Mike Mills absolutely does have hella credentials to be in his position where he is in Dungeons and Dragons right now. I have a lot of respect for Mike Mills. I have a lot of respect for the direction that he's taken the game. And yeah, he's at the heart of some of the aspects of the game that I like the most. Wonder power of strength. What level would I say is a perfect level to introduce magic items? You can introduce items from level 1, honestly. If they're a more story-based item, then they are a give your power, give the player uber amounts of power with no side effects. Like, magic items should tie into the story of the game. They should provide leads and history. They don't exist in a vacuum. And look at the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. It was just a ring of invisibility, for God's sakes, and yet it drove the entire story. Did he? Mike Mills has just posted his first D&D video on his channel of his name. Well, that's good to know. I'll definitely be watching that. Dragon merch. Paladin of Suni. Do you pronounce it Suni or Soon? I always pronounce it Suni. I know it's probably wrong, but I just like the way it sounds. Johnny Bravo, the Paladin. Nice. Don't forget, if you're a Paladin of Suni or a worshipper of Soon, and you get a physical disfigurement, you actually step down voluntarily until you get it fixed, because you can't represent your god with you know, while you're ugly. Hey, Lorenzo. Yeah. So I encourage anybody, if you're in an area and you're having trouble finding a group, be that person who makes it easier to find a group in your area. become the center of communication that allows people to connect, because I guarantee there'll be somebody else who's looking for a game in your area as well, who just doesn't know how. So create a local group on Facebook, or go to your local gaming store and put up a flyer or something, create a website address, make a mailing list, that sort of thing. Just network with people. Yeah. The game is growing quite a lot. It's bigger now than it has ever been. So chances are it's spread into your area and there's more people who are interested than you know. And the facility for those people finding games just doesn't exist, because it's never been this big before. The game has never been so widespread. So it's your responsibility, if you're having trouble finding games, to be that person who makes it easier for other people to connect with you. Be proactive. We've got the best means of communicating with each other that we've ever had in social media and stuff. So absolutely. There's AIs looking for your input to connect you so they can sell you stuff. That's the way it works. Sune. Really? Is that the correct pronunciation? Suni? Actually, there is a proper pronunciation guide. The in-world pronunciation guide to D&D. There's also a D&D Beyond pronunciation guide for monsters and races, but the in-world one's got a pretty good one for monsters. Woods of the Close Glossary, Forgotten Realms box. Do they have human deities? I don't believe it. I don't have Suni in here. Oh yes. Okay, it's Suni. So I'm correct. It's Suni, as in Sue, Ni, Suni. So that is actually the correct pronunciation of that god. Suni. Oh, I'll get you the link. Hang on. The man of the people. There you go. Classic Latin. You still driving? Still alive? Good, good. Yes, I have actually read some of Van Richten's guides. They're very involved. Wow. They're also quite dated in some respects as well, but they are really good. They give you an in-world view on monsters and things. Yeah, they are some of the best D&D source books for lore on stuff, and they're certainly worth a look if you can find them. Kaiju. Everybody loves kaiju these days. That's something that's grown up quite a bit over my lifetime, is this fascination with Japanese education, entertainment culture. It wasn't like that when I was a youth. I'm not going to translate that zone off unless you put the proper spaces between the binary. I'm going to guess it's like hello or something. No problem. Okay, guys, I'm going to get back to it. How's the Obox Obvid? Yeah, I'm going to get onto that as well. Good. It's on the cards. I've had some requests to do videos on Mishka the Wolf Spider as well. How do I think denominations would work in D&D? Because the real world has schism and hierarchies. Oh, good. I'm glad you're not talking about money denominations. Yeah, for sure. There'd definitely be local different ways of worshipping particular gods and things like that. There'd be more homogenism in the worship of gods and deities in D&D because they're real in Dungeons and Dragons. Shots fired. So there's more homogeneity in the way that the dwarven language works, for instance, because Moradin and the other gods make sure that the dwarves all speak the same language. There's more homogeneity in the way that elves speak their language and how their culture is propagated across the different worlds, because the gods are more involved there. The reason why the elves in Eberron are so completely different is because the gods are not involved in the lives of the elves of Eberron and stuff. Same thing with Athos, where the gods are absent, the culture diverges radically away from what it is in the D&D worlds where the gods exist. So there you go. So there's not as much variation in the denominations. They may pay more attention to certain aspects based on their local environment and stuff. So, if you live next to the sea, obviously you're going to pay more attention to gods whose portfolio involves the sea and fishing and weather and stuff. Interesting. Real world history with the origin of... I can't really get into that on a live stream. If you go back in your religious history about currently existing faiths that have an origin in the Middle Eastern area, there's a lot of interesting relationships about where they derived from and what they came from, and it's interesting reading the real history of the current problematic religions of the world. King Ghidorah, okay. Godzilla homebrew. Well, you got the Tiamat. You got the Tarrasque. If the Tarrasque had a breath weapon, that'd be pretty wicked. A lightning bolt weapon, a plasma weapon. That'd pretty much be like a... I suppose you could use the Tarrasque as a template for a Godzilla type creature. Shots fired. Yeah, what is the origin of humans? Humans? Nobody knows. They have been around for a long time in D&D. Back in the Age of Thunder, they were existing as a primitive race. That's great, Zonoff. I appreciate you going to the effort. You're probably swearing in binary, which I respect. Yeah, I don't know what the origins of humans in D&D is. I don't know. Pathfinder's got a lot of kaiju. Well, they're all up for the fan service, that's for sure. I mean, in environments like that, there's going to be big bad monsters which rise up to the top. Legendary creatures. I mean, in Dungeons and Dragons, we deal with pantheons and gods and things as mythology, as stories, right? So there's a certain amount of respect for people who have a living faith in these things, which become mythologies and stories when cultures pass into decline, and that will probably happen with the religions that are currently active in our world. Their cultures will pass into decline, and they'll turn into folklore and stories, and people will make comic books, and there'll be Marvel movies, with that sort of thing. It's not an outlandish idea. It exists. If we've got Chris Hemsworth running around as Thor, then it's going to happen to current religions as well. Eventually, they'll turn into pop icons. There's no point getting upset about it. But if you went back in history and you showed them, your comic book with Thor, and they just happened to be in Norse culture where they believed Thor was real, they'd probably kill you. So, or maybe just be really happy that Thor currently exists in the future, in the far future. A legacy of a culture. Scion, yes, I have. I've heard of the name. I have heard of it. AO's boss made them. Yeah. Some of the humans were transported, like the Mulan people were transported from Earth in D&D. but there's original humans that are native to the world of Toril, as far as we know. They might have been pulled in from Earth in its ancient history. We don't know. The Dark Seldarine. Yeah, the Drow deities and stuff. Like, for instance, the Seldarine, they've codified in Modern Canaan's Tome of Foes where the Seldarine exist and what they do and things like that, which is interesting because it was a lot more. They were a lot more mobile in previous editions of the game. Yeah, exactly, Ricky. It doesn't matter. Stuff that people create in fantasy stories should not impact your faith in anything in any way. It's not threatening you. It's just imagination. But, you know, there's always going to be a problem between religion and games of imagination because they step on each other's toes a little bit. Some people are more threatened by things than others. There's just as much animosity in the role-playing community towards people of faith as there is the other way around. It's a two-way street. So people in the role-playing community need to be tolerant of people of faith, and that toleration will be reflected back to us. It's that simple. We should stop attacking people who have religious views. It's not helpful. Not helpful. You're not going to get rid of religion by arguing them out of it any more than they're going to do the same to you. So there's no point arguing about it. It just causes tension. We can exist side by side, perfectly happy. Just like you shouldn't pour shit over somebody else's game ideas. You shouldn't tell them they're playing D&D wrong. Well, you shouldn't tell people that they're viewing reality wrong, because it just doesn't work. They don't impact you and you don't impact them. And the moment they do impact you, then defend yourself, for sure. But don't preemptively attack people just because they've got a different view of how reality works. We don't know everything. Oh, Jacob, yeah. That was an interesting topic, actually. There was some discussion in the comments section about that, about how Oni just can't be good. I was talking about how they've got a different brain to a human. They don't think the same way that a human does. They're alien, right? So they don't have the same emotional depth that a human does. It's just not there. It's like trying to teach morals to a cat. Like, some cats can be trained not to attack a rat, but the instincts of a cat, even if it's never seen a rat before, is to hunt and chase it, because it's setting off all the triggers that make them enjoy hunting and killing something. And then when they've killed it, they don't know what to do with it. They don't recognize it as food, but they recognize that they needed to hunt and kill it because it brought them pleasure. Same thing with an Oni. Cruelty brings them pleasure. It's just hardwired into them. They can't change that. They can deny it, but it's very hard to deny that aspect of your nature. So they can emulate being good, but they'll never understand the pleasure that somebody has of helping somebody selflessly. It just doesn't compute with them. That's not how their pleasure circuits work. So Oni are naturally inclined to be evil because they gain pleasure out of cruelty. They gain pleasure out of hunting and killing humans. So even if they're raised from a baby to do otherwise, the moment they taste blood, that's it. They're hooked to it like a drug. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't like one of the characters of one of my players and I want to kill his character. Is that a smart idea? Obviously, no. You don't take away the agency from your character. This, like, your player is your friend, okay? Don't think of it as a DM and player sort of situation. You're doing something to your friend, okay? So if you wouldn't want them doing that to you, then don't do it to them. Have a talk with the player. Have a talk with your friend about how they're playing the game and what their character is doing and stuff. Work it out. Don't do things subversively and passive-aggressively like that, because it's just going to end badly. Dungeons & Dragons is a game that you play with your friends, or it's a game that you very quickly form very strong friendships with. So
Don't do that. That's an antisocial thing to do. It's like not liking somebody's car and like driving off a cliff. They're obviously not going to be happy about it. Yeah, exactly. Talk with the player. Demons are like sharks then. Yeah, kind of. All right, everybody. Time for me to go. It's been a good stream once we finally got it working. Play safe. Be nice to your friends. Don't persecute anybody. Don't shove your shit on them if they don't need to hear it. Be good. Play games. If you can't be good, be careful. Catch you next time.